So welcome and good morning, those of you present in our sanctuary and those of you watching from the comfort of your home. We're so glad that you could join us this morning and be with us. I'm the Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown. I am so happy to be with you, and I just want to tell you one thing. If you're hearing beeping, it is that we have a funky fire alarm system hooked up to a phone, and we're waiting for rescue from the fire alarm company. So if you see somebody come in, or if you're hearing it going like, am I hearing something? You are, and it will be taken care of during the service. And we're happy to have you all here. We have so much going on, and it is wonderful. Thank you, South Church folk, for that wonderful music. And they also will be out there between services. And I am delighted to be joined and helped in preparation of worship services by worship associates. And this morning, Myra Aaronson is with me. Myra?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I can't tell you how excited how excited I am to be actually looking at you in person instead of just staring into my camera recording this. This is really, really wonderful. So welcome. We are glad you're here, whether you're physically in the sanctuary or with us via the live stream. And I know some people might be watching this later today or later this week via the wonders of YouTube. If you have been with us before, once or many times, or come regularly, you are welcome. And if this is your first time, then we especially give you a warm welcome this morning. My name is Myra Aaronson, and I am one of a team of worship associates who have the honor and pleasure of working with our interim minister, the Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown, our director of Lifespan Ministries, Kirsten Hunter, and all the rest of our wonderful staff to bring worship services to you each week. I'm going to give a special shout out to Tim DeLay, a relatively new member, for his technical support, which has made it possible for us live stream to you. Our congregation has survived and thrived during the pandemic due to their efforts and the efforts of the many, 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 many volunteers who gave and continue to give their time, enthusiasm, and energy to keep us going. And many people are involved in creating the service each week. The chancel flowers today come from Beth Fisher. And I'd like to acknowledge the gift of music today will come from Cathy Okhuysen, giving us the Invocation. The piano music in the course of this service will come from Susan Adams. And for those here in person, songs from South Church folk on the lawn before and after the service. The time for all ages today will be offered by Jen Deldeo and some of the South Church kids, so that should be fun. After the time for all ages, the children are, as always, welcome to stay here in the sanctuary or join Jen in the balcony for some quiet activities. Between services today, there will be a social hour outdoors on the portico. So if you are watching remotely and you live nearby, you can pop over to say hello outdoors if you weren't comfortable coming in. And South Church folk will be singing again outdoors starting at 10:40, so you can come by just for some music. And now Kirsten will give us our announcements.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Delightful to be here with you all. I just have a few announcements for us this morning. The small group ministry group, which shared a little bit of a testimonial last week, you got to hear a little more in depth about the value of that program. They're registering just for one more week. There is also a program known as Wellspring that is also in registering right now, and many other offerings happening at church. In your pews, you can find program information for adults and children and youth, and there will be a learning associate outside as well, sharing that information in there to receive questions or inquiries about opportunities for spiritual growth and learning here at South Church. In addition, we're looking for volunteers. it really is kind of a tricky time because people are still feeling kind of the weight and the challenge of COVID. But as we're back in person, we need ushers, we need a new tech team to help learn at the wise feet of Tim DeLay on how to help us with the live stream on Sundays so he can have some Sundays off, which is really important. So basically, if you have some time, talk to one of the staff members, talk to one of our board members, talk to anybody who looks like they might know something, and we can figure out a job that's just perfect for you. There is one that fits every size, whether it's a Sunday morning or during the week. Finally, please take a look in your order of service for lots of information about upcoming events, including the fall retreat, which is happening very soon. I think there may still be space. And that is that. And the last thing that I want to share with you, which we've been sharing each week, is just a little update about where we are in terms of COVID safety here at South Church. Our policy around COVID is framed around the idea of being flexible so that we can move along with this moving virus and be able to still be connecting with one another. Hence our live stream and lots of options that are hybrid that people can plug into in whatever way works for them. And also to be as inclusive as possible and to practice consent. And the consent part is really important. So we wanted to lift up a few things to be transparent about what we do set around policy and what you should be cautious around. The Board of Trustees at the church has just passed a requirement that anyone working with children or youth, so any of our RE volunteers or staff, as well as program staff at South Church, are going to show proof of vaccination. So as a parent, if you're wondering about that, that is a new policy that we will be making sure of. Beyond that, we are not checking vaccination status, but as you know, we're requiring masks. And we just encourage everyone to really not make assumptions about people's comfort level, and to make sure that you feel empowered to communicate your own comfort level in any given situation. We are trying to work together to keep our whole community safe and to navigate through this pandemic without losing any of our precious folks. So that's our COVID update. As far as we know, we're still continuing on with in-person services, and we'll also continue to have live stream worship for the foreseeable future. Thank you, everyone.
Myra is right. This is such a beautiful view. I'm Janis Wolak, chair of the Board of Trustees at South Church, and I'm here to tell you about one of the most important yearly events at South Church, our annual budget campaign. It's the time of year when we ask you to pledge money to fund our operating budget for next year so that we can pay fair compensation to our wonderful staff, fund church programs, pay our bills, and keep our buildings running. I'm speaking on behalf of our energetic and creative annual budget campaign team, Tom Barry, Lori Bilby, Paula Boyven, Carla Cole, Maureen O'Leary, and Mike McGrail. I know that all of us in this congregation are so grateful for their work. This time last year, things were rough. But when we couldn't meet in person, our ABC team found new ways to reach members and friends, and we raised a record amount to support our pandemic year operations and the roof campaign, which is not part of the operating budget, by the way. That's a separate budget. Our goal for the operating budget last year was $515,000. We needed substantial increases in pledges, and when we asked for a 10% increase from each person, people responded with great generosity. So this year, we're taking a breath. Like any organization, we have increases in expenses, mainly staff salaries and benefits. We especially need, by the way, to assure fair compensation to staff because the demands of the pandemic have added to their workloads way beyond job descriptions. This year, our operating budget goal is $525,000. a 2% increase. So we are asking everyone to consider increasing their pledge by 2% to help us reach their goal. Please watch your mail for your financial commitment forms from the annual budget campaign, and starting next week, you can visit the ABC team at their table during coffee hour to make your pledge also. Thank you for supporting South Church. We came through a tough year together, and we're moving on to better things together.
That is such a great sound. Our chalice this morning will be lit by Willow Young. Willow and her family have been coming to South Church for about 7 years or so, and Willow is currently on the Board of Trustees. If you are watching us from home, I invite you to light your own candle as I offer these words written by the Reverend Scott Taylor, inspired by the words of John Shar. Building the possible. May this flame cast its light toward the coming days, reminding us that the future is not simply a place we are going, but a place we are creating. The path of new possibilities will not be found, but made. A new world is waiting to be built. May our time together light the way. Now please join me in reciting our mission statement, which is in your order of service and will magically appear on your screen if you're at home. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. Thank you. What if our religion was each other? If our practice was living? If prayer, our words? What if the temple was the earth? If forests were our church? If holy waters, the rivers, lakes, and oceans? What if meditation was our relationships? If the teacher was life? If wisdom was self-knowledge? If love was the center of our being? These are the words of Ganga White. Ganga White is a world-renowned yoga master, teacher, trainer, tour leader, video producer, publisher, founder of major yoga centers, seeker, and philosopher. He became enthralled with yoga at age 11 when he saw the word yogi written on the sidewalk in chalk, and not knowing the word, he asked. The answer he got could have gone in the direction of baseball. This was in 1956. The heyday of Yogi Berra, but instead went in the direction of yoga, and he was hooked. Along the road to his becoming a Yogi Raj, he has expressed himself as, among other things, an amateur radio operator, a hot rod racer, an electronics repair person, civil rights activist, hobo, hippie peacenik, student of homeopathy and medicinal herbs, and firewalker. Talk about embracing possibility. That I came across Ganga's story is purely a fluke. I myself am merely a very, very occasional dabbler in yoga, having not, at least not yet, embraced the possibility of making it a regular part of my life. But his story and his quote captured my imagination. What if? A powerful question, I think, and at the heart of the idea of embracing possibility. Not all of us have the resources, the time, the liberty, the courage, nor the inclination to follow a path like Ganga White's. He embarked on this path when he was footloose and fancy-free, followed it successfully, met the right people, and turned it into a meaningful life. He said yes when presented with possibilities, and clearly others said yes to him when he presented his ideas. We don't know anything about his struggles, his losses, the barriers he encountered. We know too well about our own. Of this, the Reverend Sarah Lawal says, embracing possibility does not mean we stop short of acknowledging our own limitations, challenges, brokenness. Possibility rises within only when we root ourselves in reality, in our truth as we understand it, and then consciously choose to move to the edges of certainty, the edges of knowing, the edges of risk, the edge of potential failure. Embracing possibility means we might fail. We might step in it. We might get stuff wrong. We might get hurt. We might disappoint other people, people we love even. We might disappoint each other. Embracing possibility means enduring a few wounds along the way, but that should not stop us from fully living into possibility. That would be allowing fear to take over. So I'm thinking, what if I auditioned for that part in the community theater? What if I talked to a stranger? What if I asked for help? What if I volunteered even though I'm not really sure what's involved? What if I listened instead of speaking? What if the way to say yes was by saying no? What if? Our opening hymn this morning is number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Please stand as you are able, and what if we hum it?
Feel free to read along or to close your eyes and hum. Either way, you'll get a good sense of the meditative practice of humming.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. I have a couple of helpers for the story this morning, so I'd like those folks to come forward. And then anyone else who would like to hear the story closer is welcome to come up and sit in the front. Give us just a second to get our props ready. Right over here. What's that? Yep. Yeah, we'll let Willow go up first. Elizabeth, here's your meadow. If you stand right here.
Thank you. You want to stand on the step?
Perfect. You can hold that meadow.
Hold it.
Nice. Okay. And you can have a seat too for a minute. Okay. This is a story called Answer Mountain, and it's written by a person named Sarah Skwires. So, once upon a time, there was a lovely little town nestled at the edge of a rolling green meadow, lovingly tendered by a sweet 2-year-old who loved to paint. And at the end of the meadow was a grand mountain. And on this mountain, there was a word. It was 2 letters, N-O. The word on the mountain was no. And everybody else can help with this story. When I say, when I say the mountain said, and I go like this, you tell me whatever the word is on the mountain. So let's practice. The mountain said, no. Great. And so the people in the town loved this grand mountain, not only because it was beautiful, but because it was really helpful. Whenever the people in the town had a question that they needed some help with, they would just ask the question, look at the mountain, and the mountain said, no. It worked out really well for everybody, and they lived peacefully until one day. One day, Ma Custis stood up, and she was trying to decide what she was going to make for dinner for her big family. She'd been cooking for like 30 years, and it was just not coming easy to her this day, deciding what to make for dinner. So she walked to the edge of Elizabeth's rolling green meadow, and she looked up at the mountain, and she asked, should I make liver for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, no. No. And Ma Custis thought, well, that's okay, because my family doesn't like liver. So she thought, and she asked the mountain, should I make steak for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, no. No. Ma Custis thought, well, eating red meat isn't great for the planet anyway. So she thought again, should I make spaghetti for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, no. No. Should I make biscuits for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, no. Should I make vegetable stew tonight? The mountain said, no. She tried asking about watermelon and cabbage and stir-fried rice and lollipops. Should I make lollipops for dinner? The mountain said, no. Well, Ma Custis kept asking for the rest of the afternoon and into the evening and even into the night and all night long. And her family didn't even get to eat dinner that night because the mountain, every time the mountain said, no. And Ma Custis kept asking all day the next day, should I make turnips? The mountain said, no. Should I make scalloped potatoes? And the mountain said, no. And she kept trying all day and into the evening, late at night, and her family still hadn't eaten dinner since 2 days before. And finally, Ma Custis had enough. And you don't want to see Ma Custis mad, but she stomped her foot. She shook her fist at that mountain. And she went home and she just made liver for dinner because that was her first idea anyway, and she was fed up and just had to make something. Well, her family did not like the liver. In fact, they actually pretty much hated the liver dinner. There's a rare occasion where someone likes liver, but not one of them is in the Custis family. So the next day, Ma Custis got up and she rang the bell Ma Custis rang the bell that was at the edge of the rolling meadow to call a town meeting. And all the people of the town came because they loved a good town meeting and didn't want to miss, from the oldest woman that walked with not one but 2 canes to the tiniest baby who still had to be carried. They all gathered, and Ma Custis told them about this problem. And Ma Custis said, this no is a pretty pessimistic answer, and I don't think it's working anymore. Why can't the answer just be yes for once? Well, all the people in the town got a little nervous about this because this was going to be a big change. They didn't like change so much, but Ma Custis had a point, and so they formed committees and they met in small groups, they discussed, and they went through this long democratic process, and finally they voted, and it was unanimous. They would change the word to yes. And Claire Carver, the stonemason, stood up and she said, I could change that word from no to yes if you'd like. And all the people said, yes, that would be great. And so Claire Carver climbed up early the next morning, and she used her fancy stone carving tools, and she worked on that mountain all day. It took her from sunup all day to sundown, and she worked hard. And finally, as it got dark, she was done. And she went home. She went to bed. She was so tired. Thank you. And the next morning, they got up, Claire Carver did, and rang that bell to call a meeting of the town. Claire Carver rang that bell, and everybody came from all over the town, from the oldest man zooming around in his electric scooter to the tiniest baby who had just been born overnight and had to be carried. And they gathered, and Claire Carver said, I finished. And the mountain said, yes. And Ma Custis was pleased. And Ma Custis stood up and she said, I feel like I should be the first one to ask a question of this new word on the mountain, because I was the one who discovered the problem in the first place. So Ma Custis turned to that mountain and she started over. Should I make liver for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, yes. Only Ma Custis was a little confused by this. She was surprised by this answer. She was like, well, I just made dinner 2 nights ago and it was liver, and my family was not happy. They did not like the liver at all. So are you sure that I should make liver for dinner tonight? And the mountain said, yes. But Ma Custis didn't like this answer. She said, after that dinner the other night, my family made me promise that I would never, ever, ever make liver for dinner again. I promised them. Are you saying that I should break my promise? And the mountain said, yes. Well, Ma Custis had had enough. She stomped her foot. She shook her fist at that mountain again. And she said to those town people, this is not right. We need a new solution to this problem. So they, again, formed committees and met in small groups and brainstormed and worked very hard until finally one of the children stood up and said, she pointed her finger in the air, because that's what you do when you have a great idea. And this child said, what if the mountain said, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is maybe, and sometimes the answer depends. The people looked at each other, and this sounded pretty good. And so they took a big vote, and it was unanimous. They decided that the mountain would say, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is maybe, sometimes the answer depends. That was a lot of words. And Claire Carver, the stone carver, looked a little nervous and didn't rush right up to join, because they were still really tired from the last project. And Claire Carver said, I'll carve those words into the mountain, but I need a few days to rest first. And it's going to take a long time, but I'll do it. And that seemed reasonable. So the people put up a sign to hold the place while the project was underway. And so in those next few days that followed, people still had questions. But because the answer was under construction, they turned to each other and they looked inside their own hearts and they came to answers in those new ways. And they decided maybe they didn't need the mountain after all to help them with their answers. And they lived peacefully and they left the orange sign, and Claire the carver moved on with their other projects and left the mountain as it was. And our church is a place where we don't come to find the one right answer. We come to this place with questions, and we search in our own hearts, and we help each other answer these questions, and we embrace the possibility that there's more than one answer. So thank you all for helping with this story, and anyone who would like to join me can come upstairs for some quiet activities. Right over here.
Alone, we might only be able to do little, but together we can do much. Each week at the Offertory, we combine our resources to support South Church, the building, the staff, congregants, and the greater community. This month, the collection will be shared with Gather, a New Hampshire-based nonprofit that works to fight hunger in the greater Seacoast area. They do this through innovative programs such as Food Pantry Market, Meals for Kids, Farm Shares for Families, Grow for Gather, and Cooking for Community. In the words of the Reverend Kayla Parker, may we give in love and in hope. You can do this online via the donate button on our website if you're watching from home, by sending a check in the mail to our office at 73 Court Street, or if you're in the sanctuary right now, putting something in the collection plate. The offering will now be gratefully received.
us be in an attitude of prayerful reflection. We gather in this place to take time to recenter in the midst of a world full of strife and struggles. We gather in this place to take time away from our own struggles, knowing that for just a little while we can lay down our concerns. We can be together with care and know that people are here to listen. We take time this day to celebrate the things that are happening in our life, to us, to our family, that are worthy of praise, worthy of mention. And most of all, we take time to be together because it is being together where we find hope and healing. Enter into just a little time of meditation, a little time of silence. And breathe in and breathe out. And center yourself and breathe in and out. We're going to introduce a new time of joy and concern, of an opportunity to express and light candles, knowing that throughout our days and lives there are events and people and circumstances that perplex or pain or that empower us, and that it is good to take time to acknowledge our sorrows and our joys, that helps to bring release, support, and strength. I would like to invite Charlotte and Jenna, who are pastoral associates, to come up here while I explain this process ritual that we were inviting you to take part in. At this time, I'm going to invite anyone who wishes to light a candle in silence with either a joy or concern that you have to do so. And the pastoral associates are here if you have any pastoral needs that you'd like to make sure that we address. There's a yellow card in the pew, and you may write down a concern, either for yourself or someone else, so that we'll make sure the pastoral associates or myself reach out. And those who are listening from home, we invite you also to use the chat as an opportunity to express your concerns to us. And now I'll invite anyone to come down the outer aisle, light a candle, and return to your seat by the center aisle. And you may hold in your prayers and your thoughts and your meditation this community and all those who need love and care. And then the pastoral care cards will be picked up by our pastoral associates. So when you are ready, come forward and light. I hope I can explain this. Let me try. If one believes that humans are born in sin, into a sinful world, and that one is separate and unworthy of God, however that is named, and not beloved of the goodness that is our universe, then a consequence is not just to feel a self-unworthiness, but to label others as unworthy too. And this can lead to a worldview that calls for a purity of race, has a dread of the outsider, immigrants in particular, and manifest in a desire to maintain purity of blood and a distrust and abhorrence of anything that might contaminate, dilute, and make the self unclean. This can lead to unhealthy ways of acting and thinking that assumes that there are particular norms and ways of being that protect and keep one safe from the outsider. And of course, these norms enforce the perception that there are insiders, those who look, think, act like me, and there are outsiders who do not fit within the group norm, who do not think, look, or act like me, and are therefore a threat. In part, this is the root of racism and oppression, classism. The other way of dealing with the challenges, difficulties, and even sins of the world, and those we ourselves do, is by imagining that the universal story was not about sin, fear, incompleteness, estrangement, and unworthiness, but instead about possibilities and interdependence, connectedness, usefulness, preciousness, worthiness. Imagine before you a blank page that would write that story. It is the message of hope of universalism, the message of possibility and potential that is Unitarianism, and the reason why those two religions are able to merge. Both speak to the opportunity to become one with self, our neighbors, and our universe. Our Unitarian Universalist religions offers us the possibility to come together in responsibility, in accountability, and in community to accept our shortcomings, to address the wrongs, both individually and communally, and to manifest collective liberation and wholeness. As Unitarian Universalists, we are continually being called to wrestle with how to manage our own growing edges while learning about ourselves, and that we are perfectly capable of missing the mark, and yet we know the message of Unitarian Universalism is that we have the capacity to make corrections when we have done so, and when our world is calling us to be more. And more importantly, we are blessed with the knowledge that we are part of a marvelous, awesome goodness, acceptance, and that we are most beloved. That is the message that we give to our children. That is a message I think we need also to hear. As Unitarian Universalists, we are constantly being reminded that how we act, the slate we write upon, and the meaning-making we do right now will pave the world of sustainability long after we are no longer here. And that the interconnectedness of our being is not just built on a singular group identity, but on one that must expand and demonstrate our willingness to see ever-unfolding possibilities relating to the larger whole. The wholeness we experience when sitting together in the sanctuary, the wholeness we offer families who wish to have their children dedicated as a gift to the universe, and an example of the love is best realized when we take a blank paper and fill it with possibilities that can empower and heal everyone. It is a lifetime task that we engage in with others by asking questions, by reviewing history, by attempting to grasp those connections between culture and religion and our part in it right here and now. And there is one other deep belief we Unitarian Universalists hold. It is that we are capable, competent, beloved, and meaning-making folk, not existing here on earth as a pawn of something that controls us and determines who is in and who is out. For our job is to make the circle so expansive that there is no in and no out. May we be called to that. So be it. And let us join together in our closing music, 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We gather together to learn from one another, to serve the larger world, to share thoughts, to be available, to discover ways of being that we can only imagine. There are ever unfolding beginnings to our days, to our weeks, to our year. These possibilities are both personal and communal. Today, we are entering into a time when the stewardship of the church is in your hands. The annual budget campaign is now in progress. And it is time to think of the many ways you can financially support South Church. The monies that you give help us to write upon the slate and fill it with ideas that become reality. Staff, music, maintenance, all parts of the needs. Please give as you can, and if you can, give generously. Together, we can make ideas on a piece of paper reality. And now it is time to bring our Unitarian Universalist message of love and hope into the world. And with humility, we step forward with love and a strength of conviction and a desire to serve and build connections with all beings. We will go forth. May you go forth, beloved. Amen.